Hello, gardening friends. Guys, I have finally reached my last spring frost date, although the weather is still unpredictable. It's still been up and down, warm, cold. But so glad that May is finally here because I really need to start getting some of these pepper plants out because they are outgrowing my indoor grow shelves. So in today's video, I'm going to work on transitioning some of my pepper plants, not all of them, and I'll tell you why. Some of my pepper plants out to my mini greenhouse or into a cardboard box. I haven't quite decided yet, but I need to get some of them outdoors so they can start hardening off. So come along as I decide which pepper plants I'm going to be transitioning outdoors today. I'll also bring you along with me as I get those pepper plants out to my greenhouse. And then while we're out there, I'll show you what the greenhouse is currently looking like because I have transitioned some other plants out there over the last week and a half or so. So it looks a little bit different than my last video update. So I'll show you very quickly what that's looking like. And then we'll go down to the raised garden beds to see if I have any carrots or green beans that have started to sprout. And also make sure that that area is nice and hydrated because I need to make sure I get good germination on my carrots and beans for my spring harvest. So come along and let's get to it. All right, friends. So this is the grow shelf where I'm keeping all of the peppers at the moment. And right now I have about 3 trays of peppers. Now, if this is your first time here, I'm growing a mix of spicy peppers and sweet and mild peppers. And for a total of about 11 varieties of peppers. Now, my plan is to move some of the more mature pepper plants, so the ones that have several sets of true leaves on them. For the ones that aren't as far along, I'm not going to move any of those outdoors today, and that's primarily this tray here at the top. So these are all of my younger pepper plants. They have several sets of true leaves, but not nearly as many as the ones on the bottom shelf here. And on the bottom shelf here, I have a mix of spicy peppers. So over here, there's mostly jalapeno peppers, maybe a couple Anaheim chilies. And then on this side here, I've got a mix of spicy and sweet and mild peppers. And while I'm here, let me pan down and show you what these tomato plants are looking like. I mean, these over here, which is kind of the first wave that I potted up, they are just growing insane. Like this sun gold plant here, I had to add like a little bamboo stick just to give it a little extra support because this thing is like, it's growing like a tree. Same thing with this one next to it. Um, so yeah. So those are, they're doing really well. I mean, these over here are doing great as well, but these are definitely like, actually, I think this is the second set that I potted up, and this is the first set that I potted up, but these have really, really taken off. So now they are probably ready to go out. They're definitely ready to be planted at this point. The weather just hasn't been warm enough to start to transition any of my tomato plants out to my greenhouse, and that process probably won't start for another, week or so. I've spent so much time growing these tomato plants. They're like my babies, so I don't want to risk losing anything. So I'm being very, very cautious about putting any of those out in the greenhouse right now. Gonna hold off on doing that for about another week or so. And hopefully by then the weather will start to, stay consistently warm. The pepper plants, a little bit more resilient. I think that I should be okay with getting them out to either the mini greenhouse or into a cardboard box. That way I can still give them some protection with a frost cloth if need be. But at the same time, they will start to get acclimated to the outdoor environment, so that I can, hopefully get those transplanted out within the next week or two. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pull a couple of these trays out. So I think I'm going to start with this tray here. I'm going to pull it out and put it on the table behind me so that I can start going through and figuring out which ones I want to move outdoors for hardening off. Now, the reason I'm not moving all of the plants on those bottom two trays out today is because I just want to exercise a level of caution and not put all of my eggs in one basket and move everything out just in case, we get some really bad weather. You know what I mean? I just want to maybe put 50% of them out, see how that goes before I start to move the other 50%. So I'm just kind of gonna do it in phases as opposed to going all in, just because the weather in my area has been so unpredictable. For example, today we're supposed to get up to 78 degrees, but then tomorrow we're only supposed to have a high of like 55. And then it's kind of going to fluctuate throughout the week. So I'm just exercising a little bit of precaution and not putting them all out there. So I'm just going to start with half of them, see how that goes, and then I'll get the other 50% of them out into the greenhouse or into my cardboard box, whichever method, I end up deciding upon. So that's going to be my strategy for this first wave of peppers that I'm going to be transitioning outdoors for hardening off. So let me go ahead and pull out one of the trays, get it on the table. Then I'll bring you guys back so that you can follow along with me as I go through them and decide which ones I'm going to be moving outdoors today. I'll be right back. All right, friends. So I have the first tray of peppers pulled out here. I also pulled out, I had a smaller tray of peppers. There's about 4 pots on this tray that I was keeping right next to my tomato plants because they had outgrown my grow shelf. But on this tray here, these are pretty much all jalapeno peppers except for there's one Marconi pepper back here, which is more of like a mild pepper. So besides that one, these are all jalapenos. Actually have a fish pepper plant here too. So with exception to the fish pepper and the Marconi, all of these are jalapenos. And then these 4 are jalapenos here as well. I don't know what I'm going to do with all these jalapeno plants. I definitely plan to have a lot of jalapeno plants, but I did not expect that I would get as great of a germination rate as I did. So I definitely have probably about 6 more plants than I needed, but that's okay. I'll probably, oh, there's a flower that I didn't get to pull off yesterday. But as I was saying, I probably have 6 more plants than I actually need in terms of jalapenos, which is fine. What I will do with those extras is I'll just give them to family and friends. And or for the ones that I'm not able to give away, I'll find a place in the garden for them. Now, one item of note, yesterday I spent some time going through and pulling all of the flowers that were starting to pop up on these pepper plants because I don't want anything flowering or trying to produce a pepper at this point, not until I get it transplanted out in the garden. So I went through yesterday. Apparently I missed that one. And there's probably a couple other smaller ones that I may have missed, but I tried to go through as best as I could yesterday and pick as many of those off as I could, and there were quite a few. And then the second thing that I did yesterday was I fertilized everything. So I bottom watered with my organic liquid fertilizer. I like to make sure that I do that before I put them outdoors. That way they're sort of at their best as they start to acclimate to the outdoor climate. So there's another flower that I missed. So yeah, just wanted to kind of point that out. I always try to make sure that I fertilize my plants or seedlings before I put them outdoors. That way they have as much strength as possible as they work towards acclimating to the outdoor temps, sun exposure, wind, and etc. want to make sure that they have plenty of nutrients sort of going out into those conditions. So now I'm going to go through and figure out now. One thing I'm going to do while I have each of these trays out is I have my little notepad here. I'm going to go through and I'm going to take inventory also of what I have so I know how many of each variety I have, because I do have a plan in terms of how many I need or how many I want to be able to plant out into the garden. Then that way, with my inventory, I know how many I have available to give away to family and friends. So I'm going to be sort of taking note of that as I go through and pick and choose what I'm going to be putting onto my tray over here. This is the tray I'm going to be using to get things outdoors for hardening off. So I'm going to, so you may see me taking notes as I'm going through and doing that. So I'm going to work through this big tray and this small tray here. And then once I finish that, I'm going to go and pull out the second tray there and kind of work through the same process. So one other item of note, I have two different varieties of jalapenos that I started from seed. One variety is called the early jalapeno, and that's the majority of what you see here. And then I have a couple of jalapeño peppers in here as well. And that particular variety is supposed to be like a more compact, bushier variety of a jalapeno, and it's supposed to mature a lot quicker than the traditional jalapeno. The plan is that I'll be able to harvest the jalapenos first, as you know, the early jalapenos are developing and maturing in the garden. So I'm going to first go through and figure out how many. So let me see how many. I think I only have like a couple jalapenos. So I think, so these two are jalapenos. And then I have, this is an early jalapeno, early jalapeno. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, so I have 10 early jalapenos. I'm going to make a note of that. And then I have 2 jalapenos. And then I have 1 fish pepper and 1 marconi there in the back. And I know just from memory that I only had 1 fish pepper plant that germinated. So it looks pretty good. It looks nice and healthy. I only had 1 that germinated, but I just remember right off the bat that I only have 1 fish pepper and then 1 marconi that germinated. So the marconi and the fish pepper, because I only have 1, I'm not going to put those outdoors. I'm going to leave those inside. And then I think I'm going to transition the largest of the early jalapenos out. And since I have 10 in total, I'll transition 5 of them out into the greenhouse or cardboard box that I have out there. And then I'll leave the other half inside. So I know that these are the tallest because I intentionally, and the reason why I know that is because I took them off the shelf and put them onto the storage container because they were starting to get pressed up against my grow light. So this one is trying to push out some more flowers. Just gonna pull those off really quickly. Sometimes they're so small that you can't see them until you get really close up on them. These are probably ones that I missed yesterday. They were so tiny. All right, that looks better. Okay, so I'm going to gonna just start putting, and like I said, I'm just going to take 5 of them. I'm going to leave the others, probably like the smallest ones, I'll leave them inside and just going to take the 5 biggest ones that I see. So I need one more. Let's see, which one do I want to take? Maybe this one. This one looks taller. Look at that. Nice and healthy. I mean, they just look amazing. And I've been fertilizing them with my liquid fertilizer every other week. So I think that's really been helping to keep them nice and healthy. So then in terms of the jalapenos, I think I'm going to put one jalapeno out. So I only have two. Actually, I'm going to leave both of the jalapenos. No, I'll take one. I'm going to take one. So maybe I'll take, which one? I guess I'll take this one. They both are about the same size. So one jalapeno. And then I'm going to leave this one. Then I'm going to leave this other one on the grow shelf. I may have to move this. Yeah, like I think for the taller ones, I'm going to move them to the smaller tray just so they have a little bit more room to grow vertically. I feel like some of them are starting to get a bit cramped. So I'm trying to do my best to move things around so that they have a little bit more space. So as they start to outgrow the grow shelf, if I'm not comfortable moving them outdoors, then I will find like another alternative, like moving them to a smaller tray and just putting them on like the storage tote next to my tomato plants. So that's what I'm going to do with these two. I'm going to move them over there. So that's now what this tray is looking like. It's about half empty. So I'm going to go ahead and get this back over on the shelf. And then I'm going to get that second tray pulled out over here, and then we'll go through that one as well. I'll be right back. All right, friends. So I've got the second tray pulled out here. And this is mostly sweet and mild peppers, but I do have a couple spicy peppers in here as well. So let's see, I've got a couple of pepperoncini. So this is a pepperoncini. All three of these are pepperoncinis. They're still a little small. I started the pepperoncini peppers a few weeks after I started a lot of the other peppers that you see here. So that is primarily why they're a bit smaller in size compared to the other ones that you see here. So 3 pepperoncini, and then I have 1 Anaheim chili here. I have a California Wonder here. I have a Goliath sweet orange pepper here. And then one behind that as well here. And then back here, this is a cayenne pepper plant. Here in the middle, I've got an Ozark Giant here. Another California Wonder here. And then this is my one sheep nose pimento pepper plant here. That's what that one is looking like. So anything where I only have like one plant of that variety, I see some buds I'm trying to pull off. Anything where I only have one variety, I'm definitely not going to move that out today. I'm going to hold off. So on this particular tray, I think I'm going to move. And also one thing I'm keeping in mind too, especially with like these California Wonder, Goliath Sweet Orange, Ozark Giant, and cayenne pepper plants. I have more of those on that top shelf there in that tray. So in that tray there's more Ozark Giants, more California Wonders, more Goliath Sweet Orange peppers. And they're just a little bit smaller, which is why I have them on that tray. So I think I'm going to move. Now, since the pepperoncini peppers are still, a bit small, I'm not going to move any of those out today. I will move this Goliath Sweet Orange out today. So I'm going to put that over there. So I'm going to put that on this tray over here. And then I'm also going to move, that's another Goliath Sweet Orange. Maybe I'll leave that one. What's this? This is an Ozark Giant. I think I'll move this cayenne pepper plant out. It's quite big. Actually, this is 2 pepper plants in this particular pot, but I'm going to move that one out today. And then not going to move the sheep nose pimento, not going to move this Anaheim chili because it's still, I think it can still, yeah. I think I'll move this California Wonder. That one is looking pretty good, so I'm going to move that one out. I'm going to hold off on Anaheim chili. And yeah, I think that's all I'm going to move out today. I think that is a pretty good number. So I'll leave. Yes, I think that's all I'm going to move out. I think what I have is a pretty good amount. This one plus all of these. So that's 2, 4, 6, 8. That's 9 plants in total. So yeah, I think that's a pretty good amount to start with. So I'm going to go and put these back over on the shelf and move everything back in its rightful place. And then I will bring you guys back when I'm outside with this tray of peppers, and then we'll go ahead and start getting those set up in its temporary location for hardening off. And then we'll work through that process. So I'll be right back. Hey friends, before I went outdoors, I wanted to give you the final tally of peppers that I have because I went through and I accounted for what I have up here on this shelf as well. So just to let you know, I have a total of 5 cayenne peppers, 1 fish pepper, 4 California Wonder, 4 Ozark Giant, 3 Goliath Orange, 4 pepperoncini, 3 Anaheim chili, 1 sheep nose pimento, 10 early jalapeno, 2 jalapenos, and 1 marconi. A lot of peppers. So just wanted to give you guys, and I'll put the final tally up on the screen for you guys as well. So just wanted to share that with you, just so you have an idea for the amount of peppers that I've been growing indoors here. Now let's head outdoors and get this tray out there for hardening off. All right, guys, so there's the tray that we're going to be moving out. So I've got about 9 plants in total here. And I feel like every time I look at these peppers, I find more buds that I need to pick off. Hi, Tiger. All right, so let's see. It's the greenhouse. Let's get it opened up. So let's see. So this is what the greenhouse is currently looking like. Got some space here and there because I have been moving some things out and getting things planted. So as you can see, I've got almost an empty tray there. There's about 4 verbena plants in this one here. And then no space over there. So I think what I'm going to do, because this side of the greenhouse, get this to stay up. So I think what I'm going to do, because this left-hand side of the greenhouse typically gets the brunt of the sun, that side over there to the right, it gets some sun. It gets sun, but it doesn't get nearly as much as this side. So typically my preference is when I'm moving something in here for the very first time, I like to start by putting it over on that side. so that it doesn't get direct sun exposure like on the first couple of days. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to transition or move some of the plants that are here in the middle over to this tray, and then move those there to the far right over to the left as well. That way I have that tray. That way I can put the pepper plants over there in that corner. So I think that's what I'm going to do. So let me work through that, and then I'll bring you guys back and show you what it's all looking like once I've got everything moved around. Playing musical chairs, but hey, we've got to do what we have to do, right, to make things work. So let me work through that, and I'll bring you guys back in a moment. All right, friends. So that was not too bad. I just ended up removing the 4 verbena plants that were here, placing them down at the tray, down in the tray at that end there. And then I just moved the other trays to the left, just slid them all over to make room for the pepper plants here. So 9 pepper plants in total there for hardening off and everything else. And then pretty much the 3 trays, this one, and this one that you see here, this is all stuff that I have transitioned out to the greenhouse over the last, week and a half. So got a little bit of everything. Lavender, I've got some sunflowers way there in the back over there. I've got marigolds, I've got some feverfew, I've got a Dusty Miller, I've got some peppermint here. Here I've got some Swiss chard, 2 different varieties, and I'm hoping to transplant into my green stock here soon, at least some of it. And then I've got some zinnias here, 3 different varieties. And rather than like split them all up, I just potted them all up into this larger nursery pot. So this is one variety here, one here, and then another variety here. Some amaranth there in the back. Some cosmos here. Then on this tray, I've got some celosia, some status there in the back, scallions, some cabbage. And then here in the front are petunias. As you can see, some pots are missing from the tray because I have taken a few and planted them out into some of my containers. And then the other day, I actually transplanted a few into my front yard, my little light post garden bed that I have out front. So I put a couple of those in there as well. But everything's looking good. I still got a couple broccolis that I need to get planted out, but hopefully we'll get that done here soon. So now that that is done, let me get this closed back up. So let's get this insect netting back down and in place. And then we're going to go downstairs to one of the garden beds and see if I've got any beans or carrots that are popping up. All right, friends, so let's head down to my Vajayga raised bed. And in this bed, I currently have some broccoli, kale, pak choi, and sweet peas planted. About a week ago, I direct sowed some blue lake pole beans and sugar snap peas alongside the sweet peas on both sides. So let's see if there's anything that's peeking through the soil at this point. It looks like there is something. Yeah, I'm seeing something, guys. I think those are the sugar snap peas. Now, I also sprinkled some radish seeds around the base of this broccoli plant, and there's one. Look at that. There's actually quite a few. Same thing around the base of this broccoli plant. See, quite a few have sprouted up. And then let's check around this trellis. I see a few sugar snap peas. I see a few that are popping up, guys. Gonna have sugar snap peas soon. And yeah, more radishes. So these are the kale. That's so exciting. And then here at the very front, I planted some Carota carrot seeds. And so far, I'm not seeing any sprouts popping up through the soil. Probably need to come through and give it a little bit of water. Sweet peas over here in this pot are looking great. Pak choy here are looking nice and healthy. Not seeing any pest damage, which is a plus. Overall, this bed is looking so good, friends. I cannot wait to see what it looks like in a few more weeks. Over here, I have more sweet peas, which I need to start training up this trellis. But we're going to save that for another day. All right, friends. So based on my preliminary findings, no carrots have sprouted yet. Beans have not sprouted yet. But it looks like the sugar snap peas are starting to come up, which is great, which makes sense. Sugar snap peas typically can start germinating when the temps are between 55 and 60 degrees Fahrenheit. Pole beans, bush beans, a lot of the times require a bit warmer weather. So hopefully the next week or so, I'll start to see some things sprouting. And now I'm just going to go out into the garden and make sure that everything is hydrated, given that I haven't watered anything over the last couple of days. We did get some rain a few days ago, but sometimes rainwater is just not enough to keep things hydrated. So I'm going to go through and check the cabbage, the onions, some of the brassicas, and make sure everything, is nice and hydrated. And I'm probably going to water the spot where I have the carrots planted as well, just to keep that area moist and hydrated as well, because definitely don't want the carrot seeds to dry out. Otherwise, I'm not going to get very good germination. So I'm going to go back out really quickly and work on that. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Thank you so much for all of your support. I so much appreciate it. I really hope to see you all back here soon. Until next time, friends, take care.